A plot is not a decoration at the end of your study. It's a way to reveal the chemistry that you've tried to explore in your laboratory studies. So here are two plots. One reveals the chemistry, the other one somewhat obscures it. Same numbers, same data, different choices that made these plots. So this video is not a matplotlib tutorial, although we're going to be using matplotlib to make these figures. This video is mostly about the decisions you need to make in order to have plots that are honest and reveal the chemistry that you're trying to test in the lab. So whether you're quantitating some analyte or trying to determine if you have an out-of-spec batch in your study. Let's get started. So this is the default plot when using plt.plot, and we have our X data and our Y data. Now notice this figure does not have an X-axis, so we don't know what this represents. There's no Y-axis, there's no labels, and we don't know the relationship between these lines here. And visually, you might assume that there's some concentration gradient, but the color map that was chosen does not help to reveal that. Now, if you want to follow along with this notebook, visit the GitHub repo and select notebook 2.5. Now, let's begin fixing this plot by making more choiceful decisions as we think about the chemistry that we are trying to reveal. The first step for me is adding axis labels and a title to this plot. So I'm going to select one of these lines and begin adding these details to the plot. And we can see here that the x-axis is actually absorbance and the y-axis is the wavelength. And because we understand the chemistry between 400 and 800 nanometers, this is a UV-Vis experiment, which is not obvious in the first figure. Furthermore, if this was something like Raman or IR, where we actually want to invert the axis, we can use the axis.invert x-axis in order to flip this to better represent the data. Now, given that we know this is a UV-Vis study, and those lines are stacked on top of each other, this was likely going to be a more quantitative study, and so we want a better color scheme than those discrete colors used in the first figure. Here, we're going to use the viridis color map, illustrated here, from the matplotlib library. And once we apply that color scheme, this figure makes a lot more sense, where the x-axis is still illustrated as absorbance versus wavelength, but now we're going to use this color map to give us the relative concentration of these materials. And the color is going to be encoded via concentration. And this is important because with discrete colors, that infers a different type of relationship between these lines that is not truly represented in this study. Now, let's switch to a study where we do have categorical variables. Let's say we're looking at 3 different batches, and so we don't want to use this viridis continuous color map. We want to do something that's a bit more obvious. Now, this is one of those areas also where we're going to be very sensitive to those who have color blindness and trying to pick a color map that is accessible to everyone. In this case, there are several options in the matplotlib library, and we can also just look online for hex values that are accessible. Batch A and B are shown in blue and orange, and they actually follow very closely to each other. And if you look at batch C, there appears to be a new peak at 520 nanometers. Now, there's already a couple of things your brain is doing without even knowing based on how I have plotted this data. The colors are discrete, that tells you something about the batches. One of the other powerful things about overlaying your data is that it helps to reveal those small differences. And so I illustrated that there was a difference at 520 nanometers. If you were to zoom in on that peak, you see that that difference is further highlighted and appears to be quite real. We see that batch A and batch B have this baseline there, and there's truly a new peak at this wavelength. Furthermore, if you want to add different types of overlays into your figures, we can use something called axvspan, and this will allow us to color those band windows and the contamination region on top of our spectra. And so here I'm illustrating 2 different bands in blue and green, which are band 1 and band 2 respectively, and then our contamination region around 520 nanometers, which is illustrated in orange. If you don't want these bands to be too strong, we can set the alpha, which will add some opacity to those colors. And of course, here we are adding our labels with these set X and Y labels, title, and legend. When making detailed figures, another thing that's also important to consider is whether you want to annotate the data using chemistry relevant annotations. Here I'm going to be annotating using the ax.annotate function, and there are several options such as arrows and text that you can incorporate. This is also one of those areas where if you have a figure and you want to start annotating, In this case, I'm going to illustrate the lambda-max at 449 nanometers, and then I'm also going to annotate that contamination peak at 520 nanometers and this secondary band. And so this is a different way than using the axvspan I illustrated before, and oftentimes can be used in combination with it. However, it is worth noting that these annotations are done one at a time. You see I have an annotation for one of those points, the second point, and then we have something for the text as well. Now, admittedly, this next thing I'm going to tell you is something that's going to make your figures much easier to use, particularly for publications where you want high resolution figures, you want them to have a certain style, and instead of trying to make every figure look the same, you can set your parameters at the top of a notebook, and those will propagate throughout all of your figures. So in this case, let's say we want our figure to be 7.5 by 4.5. We want a particular DPI. We want a particular font size and all the other specs. We can take a lot of information and save that and call this our publication guide. And some journals actually have the specs they want for your figures. You can encode them here, and all the figures in this notebook will match those parameters. So if you look at this next figure, you can see it looks a little bit different than the one I showed you before. We have the shaded region. We have our viridis color map. The resolution on this figure is a tad bit higher than the one I showed you earlier in the notebook, and the font is a bit bolder and larger, and this will look really good in a scientific journal. Furthermore, notice that there are no grid lines here to reduce any visual clutter, and we don't have that top and right vertical line there, just to make the figure look a bit cleaner. Admittedly, some of this is just stylistic preferences, but generally you want your figure to be as clutter-free as possible because we don't want to distract from the actual chemistry we're trying to reveal. Lastly, let's focus on some misleading visualizations. And the first topic will be zooming in too far. Now I'm going to show you two plots here, where on the left we have what I'm going to call an honest plot, where we're zoomed out pretty far. We see that batch A and batch B both have this curvature here. But now let's zoom in really close. Notice our y-axis is now 0.78 to 0.84, which would be something in this region here. And now this is truly just looking at noise. This is not a meaningful zoom and could lead to misleading interpretations of this data. The next trap could be somewhat polarizing, but I want to call it out anyway, and that is using a misleading color map. And so in this case, I'm using a jet color map on the left side and the viridis color map on the right. Now, the thing I like about the viridis is that it tends to be a bit smoother, and the quantitative relationship is a bit easier to infer. There are cases where jet is useful. However, depending on the type of study you're running, you want to be really careful with using this color map that spans from blue, green, yellow, and all the way to a deep red. This might cause some interpretation that is not quite true to the data. And as you can see here, these 2 points are based on the same data set. This looks way more extreme. This looks a bit more smooth and gradual and true to the quantitative nature of this study. Now, there are cases where this might be what you want, but I would say ensure that it is a deliberate choice and enhances the story and maintains the honesty of the underlying measurements. Here's another big one, and that's ensuring that your overlays are a true, fair comparison. In this case, I have the same chemistry that's overlaid, but the spectra are processed differently. The blue trace represents my raw data, and the orange trace is the same chemistry, but has been baseline subtracted. Now, if the goal is to illustrate the differences between the raw data and the post-processed data, this is fair. But if you have a bunch of data that you're trying to illustrate at the same time, but they've been processed differently, you really need to separate that out to ensure that the visual comparison is accurate and honest to the chemistry, or ensure that it's clear to the audience that this is what you're doing. However, this could be a good case to use a subplot or a facet plot to separate the data based on how it was processed. Now, I want to leave you with some code to look at, and this could really help you as you start making more plots using Python in the future, and that's just to write a function. Now, functions are little code snippets that you can reuse, and this will allow you to take everything we've talked about with the right color map, the right publication ready styles, and bottle all that up into a single call that allows you to just put in your data, add the title you want, and output a properly rendered spectrum. For this example, I'm using the plot spectra function. And note this is a function because I have this def keyword there. And this is worth opening the repo to study more. But suffice to say that I'm encoding a lot of that information we just discussed earlier in this notebook all in one function to generate this figure using this helper. The nice thing is we can put in new data and get the same figure. So let's say you're testing a bunch of different analytes in different matrix, and you want to generate the same figure across all those different studies. All you need to do is import the new data, pass this function, and you will get the figure out. The same can be done where we have different classes and we want to stack the data. And this is the case for our batch study. So now that we've gone through the entire video, I want you to know that honesty in your data is a design constraint. There are things that we can do that can be really fancy, but may not be true to the chemistry or the underlying measurement data. These figures should really enhance the story, make it clear to the stakeholders, and note you might have one figure that's meant for other laboratory scientists and one figure for the people who write the checks. And just keep that in mind with the designs you might use, the color maps you might use, as well as focusing on ensuring that your data is accessible. That is, the story is clear and can be understood by all that need to understand it. Now, let me know below, are there figures that you're trying to create in Python but can't quite figure out how? I'd be happy to help with that, or anything else you'd like me to talk about in future videos. In any case, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.